everybody?
Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday night. And hello.
I don't know what to say. She came on like a whole radio personality.
Hi, I like it.
As you see, we're doing paranormal tonight. We're gonna look at Eastern State Penitentiary.
Before we go into the thing, let me give you a backstory. Eastern State Penitentiary is one of the first ever penitentiaries in the United States. It was in the 1800s that this big place was made. It is actually made like a star. It's really big and it has many different places in there. They also have a watchtower on the top. Now, the most famous person that was actually in there was Al Capone. He had ran from Chicago to New York to Philadelphia, and when he was in Philadelphia, he was arrested for having a pew pew. Everybody know what that is. And he was put into Eastern State Penitentiary. He stayed in there, and he had his room was very luxury. He had all his own chairs, he had books in his room, and all kinds of stuff. They said he even got like special treatment, and he was then transferred back into Chicago for tax evasion. So, and then the story from there goes a whole array. But
We we took the tour.
Yep. And it's very big. It has many different areas, from a barber area where people can go and get cuts, like shaved, to a hospital area where people would go for mental. And they even had people go in there that was in solitary confinement, which is like a dark area where there was no light. And they even had a dog in there. The dog was charged. It was. There was a dog that was in there that was charged with killing a cat. And so he was put in there, but he was there for morale. And he stayed in there until his passing. And they say if you stay there long enough, you'll hear him barking, or you can hear him moving around in the penitentiary. It's very, very unique. So if you ever come to Philadelphia, you go to Fairmont Avenue and you'll see this big penitentiary called Eastern State Penitentiary. And it's also known for its very famous thing that they have on Halloween called Terror Behind the Wall, where it's a haunted prison.
And I'm letting you know we are not doing it this year.
She will not do it. No, because they have to touch you, or they can't touch you. There's a whole thing.
I would love to go in there.
They also have it where ghost hunters, the U.S. ghost hunters actually went in there, and they had the thing of what was it? Was it Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I think it's called. You mean the ghost hunters, Jason and Grant?
That one, and then they had something with Nickelodeon where they had the kids from the kids go in there, and it's called Are You Afraid of the Dark? And the
kids, that has to be one of the new ones.
Beyond Scared.
It was the old one. It was one of the old ones where the kids got to go in there and they had to stay in there.
Because I've watched Are You Afraid of the Dark? I've never seen that.
Beyond Scared, I know they had that one, or the scariest places in the world, where a group of people and kids can go in and they have to spend like 24 hours in it.
Yeah, that's the one. Where they have to stay in there for 24 hours and they literally have to stay in there. And the kids have reported they got smacked upside the backside or on their arms or got pushed. The parents said that she was literally terrified because she saw a boy running purely undressed across the ground, and he did not. There was nobody else in there, and it's so many kind of sightings in there. People hear people screaming because, like I said, there was also a psychiatric place in there, so you had people screaming. You had it where this place was at one point they didn't have proper running water, so people got bacteria and got sick in there. It was all kinds of stuff. And Eastern State Penitentiary sits right in the middle of Fairmont, going right to Fairmont, and there's a big penitentiary. And
I
many
mean, it
people
looks like a giant castle, so you're not going to miss
it's
it.
a castle, but it's actually a penitentiary, and it's the very first penitentiary in the United States. The second one
Yep.
was actually Alcatraz, and it's very big and it's very cool. So if you're ever in Philadelphia, take a look. It's really cool to see. They have many tours. You have student tours, family tours. They even have private tours, and they have these radio things like headphones. And if you put it towards the mental thing, it'll tell you of each thing about these areas, including people's places.
Yep. Hey, Nuckins, come on up.
And
Hi, Nuckins!
come on up. We're talking about Eastern State Penitentiary. Really cool place.
And
really, really
we're looking at all the investigations starting back to 1923.
cool. Yep.
And that was a long time ago.
Oh yeah,
That
that's
place
way.
is haunted. Me and her have been in there, and yo, I got shoved. I got punched. I got shoved, punched, and told to leave. You know what? Which granted. Which granted. You said leave. I was like, which granted. I got you. I'm out.
Well,
Yep.
that should be any time I say to leave. Shoot. I got really good intuition.
Yeah. And then we went there for an art gallery, and it was really weird because we was there, and they give you this vase, and on the vase, if you look up the numbers on there, those are the inmates that actually stayed in there. They had
Yep.
a famous what was he? He was a famous mobster to a famous gunslinger. He was in there, and robber, and he was in it. Their dog was in there. That's all kinds of people was in there, and there
A
was a
lot of
young
it's
kid in
falling
there,
down, too, though.
huh?
I said a lot of it's falling down, though.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
they
But they,
gotta restore it, and that's what they're playing with right now.
yeah, they're restoring. But there
Yeah.
are areas that they will let you go walk around in. And if you are very in tune, yeah, you can actually hear and feel things. People, I mean, even people who haven't.
I mean, even the ghost hunters caught that black anomaly. That that black figure that was coming to them and then went backwards, and they tested it
Oh
with
yeah,
everything. They tested it with
that
the black thing, with the black blanket, everything. They could not debunk it.
that one there, that has been there for a long time, and people say they see it when you go in there. Sometimes it will make
Yep.
itself known to people, and a whole group of people were actually we were all doing a tour, and we seen it, and it was a whole group of us from all over the world and all over the United States. We were all in this group, and this thing just came moving by and went up the gate and went right through, and we all was just sitting there with our mouths open because
All
we.
right.
Okay, Nuckins.
Okay,
You need to
nothing.
get home. You need to call me, and so we can get together so I can show you how to do this drop down. So that way you could get, you don't have to worry about your hours.
But we was
So
all
we
in
got to
a
do that
group.
too, Nuckins. I can't wait till you start doing that again. I
Me
was going to do
too.
one too.
I'm gonna watch it.
Oh,
All right, guys, are we ready to check this out?
Yeah, but
yes.
like that, me and her saw that anomaly, and a whole bunch of us from all over the world were watching this, and we couldn't explain it. Everybody's mouth was open. We were all shocked of what we saw because nobody. This thing literally let itself being seen, and it just walked right past. It went right through the walls, and it was a whole group of us that seen it. It was like at least 20 to 30 of us sitting in the group, and they were all
Yeah.
from all over the world, like China and places.
It was freaky.
All
Yeah, it
right.
was.
No problem,
All
Nuckins.
right.
Just let me know.
We even kind of snuck into a part we wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, that was not a nice area. Trust me. That area was whoo, off the chart. That area over there was off the chart. That's why they don't let people go over there much or at all.
Yep. All
But
right,
it was
guys. Here we
cool,
go.
though.
It was.
All right. Here we go, guys. This is the first one. This is the investigation from 1923. And they do want you to show their stuff. So I do have the thing up for fair use and everything. So we'll
And if
stop
you
it every
ever
now and then and
visiting,
talk and everything else.
and if you ever in Philadelphia, take a tour there. You might find some really cool things out about this place, and it's very cool. I actually am very proud to have that in my city of Philadelphia.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, girls. Here we go.
Hello all, my name is Connor and I'm an educator here at Eastern State Penitentiary Historic Site. Thank you for coming to Eastern State's Facebook page to listen to our discussion on the 3 major investigations into the conditions at Eastern State. For the past 2 weeks, we have been taking a look at the first 2 major investigations in Eastern State's history, in 1834 and then again in 1897. For the finale of this series, we are going to be discussing the pivotal 1923 grand jury investigation. If you hadn't had a chance to see the previous 2 videos, I definitely recommend it, but this video can be watched on its own. Throughout this presentation, we will be thinking about these 2 questions. Whose responsibility is it to report systematic abuse? And what role can art play in revealing the conditions of prisons? Before we go any further, please note that the content and language of today's discussion may not be suitable for younger learners.
Trigger warning.
In our
Yeah.
first presentation on the 1834 investigation, we discussed how a joint committee formed in the Pennsylvania legislature to bring 5 charges against the prison and its first warden, Samuel R. Wood, after allegations of corruption and cruelty were raised by prison employees. We focused primarily on the 3rd charge of cruel and unusual punishment in the death of a prisoner named Matthias McCumsey.
Oh, I remember it.
In 1897, another legislative committee was formed to investigate Warden Michael J. Cassidy, hiding abuses inflicted on prisoners with mental illnesses, focusing specifically on the case of a man named Archibald White. This investigation was spearheaded by Judge James G. Gordon, and Judge Gordon accused Eastern State and Warden Cassidy of falsehood in their official reports, cruelty and inhumanity, and secreting and fabricating evidence, all related to the treatment of people with mental illnesses. With both these investigations, the prison and both wardens were acquitted, and each—
You got to remember, back then they mixed the prisoners with the people that are special needs.
Yeah, and a lot
Or
of
had the bipolar and all that.
them, like the guy that they just mentioned, the other guy that they said died, or the guy with the mental illness, they actually did a lobotomy on the guy
Yep.
without consent of family or anybody else. They did a lobotomy on the guy. So the guy literally was just sitting there, incapacitated. And they said that he was out of control and they had to do it. But they found out that they fabricated it, but they still acquitted them and they still kept their jobs. So back in those days, people with mental illness was not really. Thank you. They believe that
My
people with
God.
mental illness wasn't really a big thing, so they would do all kinds of experiments on them, from lobotomies to shock treatment to all kinds of stuff to these people, and it was really cruel and unjust punishment to them, and it was very sad. It was very very sad to hear, and they did some other stuff that was can't even be spoken on, not on these YouTubes. Trust me, some of the stuff that they did to the females and the males, you can't just discuss it. It was just horrible.
Yeah, that's why it says a trigger warning. I don't know how much he's going to talk about stuff, so be prepared.
Yeah, trigger warning, because Eastern State was back in the 1800s was not what you think. It's supposed to be the most. It is possibly the first penitentiary ever. So imagine, people, in the 1800s, the first penitentiary ever created to keep what they call bad actors out. People with mental illness or people who done crimes out. This is their first penitentiary, and already they're getting complaints about people getting cruel punishments and tortured and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, trigger warning. Trust me, trigger
Yeah.
warning. There's a lot of stuff that you're gonna hear that is gonna be really, really rough, real rough. So trigger
Okay.
warning.
All right, let's continue.
each legislative committee issued a clean bill of health with a few mild reprimands and suggestions for reform. However, The outcomes of the 1923 investigation resulted in the resignation of the warden and a drastic shift in Eastern State's public reputation and method of operation.
Yep.
One similarity between all three investigations is that this investigation was also kickstarted by someone going outside official channels of communication to address alleged abuses. In the 1920s, a Quaker activist named Anna Wharton Morris filled this role by trying to raise awareness about Warden Robert McKinty's allegedly corrupt administration. Warden Robert McKinty, like Warden Michael Cassidy,
and they actually blocked her from even getting it out. She had to go underneath the East Penitentiary and the news to get it out the back into the back door, so people would see and understand what's going on.
Hello, Shorty.
They wanted to expose it. Hey, Shorty, good to see
And
you,
here's the
hon.
thing. And here's the thing about it. Quakers usually don't get involved. Here in Pennsylvania, Quakers only get involved if they feel that something is really unjust. So for her to actually interfere, that means that she's seen something really unjust. Because here in Pennsylvania, especially in the Philadelphia area, the Quakers don't usually get involved with our justice because they have their own justice. But
Well, look
because
what
something really unjust, she literally had to go over Eastern State and everybody else to try to get some kind of justice for these people.
Yeah. It's been a while. Hey, y'all. Everyone is doing well. Yeah, we're doing good. We're just doing our thing. And
And
tonight,
before,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, before anything, thank you very much. Forgot Firefly for putting this up because this is really cool. This is my kind of expertise because I live in this area, so I know a little bit about this. So thank you very much for putting this. Is like piqued my interest so well, and
Oh,
it's so
yeah.
cool to put it up there. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
we've
really,
been wanting to do this. We every time we get to it, we end up getting sidetracked.
yeah, I really do.
But all right, let's continue on here, guys or ladies.
Cassidy, who we discussed last week, oversaw Eastern State for almost 2 decades, from 1908 to 1923. This period represented a massive transition in Eastern State's history because by 1913, the prison officially ended the separate system of solitary confinement and switched to a congregate system of prisoners housing, working, and exercising together. This shift happened gradually, as we discussed last week during Warden Cassidy's tenure, but everything changed for Eastern State in 1913. One of the biggest challenges facing the prison was a major influx in its population. By the early 1920s, the total number of prisoners ranged from 1,400 to upwards of 1,600 people incarcerated. This population increase ushered in a chaotic time of overcrowding.
That's what I was just going to say. He just said it. They were so overcrowded back then. There was no room to move for anybody.
Yeah, some people have to actually be let go because there was so many people in there that they couldn't house everybody. They had people in double rooms. Some people were tripled in there. You had
There's
people.
people that had to sleep on the floors and everything.
Yeah, they were sleeping on floors. Some of them had to stay in the cafeteria in there. So it was like where they eat at, the dining area where they eat at. Yeah, it was all kinds of craziness because there was so many people that was in there. And like they said, from 1,400 to like 18 and or up, yeah, that's a lot of people to house.
Yep. Okay, here we go.
And accusations of mismanagement, which were made against the prison and specifically Warden McKenty. One of the best visualizations of overcrowding is shown in this image from a 1929 silent film recorded at Eastern State. Imagine having to fit over 1,600 people in just 2 of these dining halls 3 times a day. That's how overcrowded Eastern State was. In 1920,
they had to do it 3 times a day.
Yep.
They literally had to separate and do it, in 3 shifts in each setting.
So imagine one set of people might have to get up at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning to go get breakfast. Somebody got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get breakfast, and somebody got to get up 5 o'clock in the morning to get breakfast. That
Yep.
same thing with the lunch, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and then 1 o'clock. That's a lot of people. That's a lot
Oh
of food.
yeah. Nobody got rest in there. It was always something he had to do.
Yeah. So a lot of people were overexhausted, and some people actually passed out from exhaustion because they were up so much that they didn't get proper sleep. Somebody even passed away, like died from sleep deprivation. He literally
Yep.
knocked his head against a wall and took himself out because of sleep exhaustion. He started hallucinating and he knocked himself against a wall and took himself out. And they called it accidental, that the guy got into some kind of confrontation, and they, brushed it under the rug that he got into a confrontation and he took himself out. So,
Yep. Okay, here we go.
The Civil Service Reform Association wrote a report co-authored by Anna Wharton Morris, referred to here by her married name Harrison, accusing the prison of nepotism, cruelty, and mismanagement. Morris had made frequent visits to Eastern State between the 1910s and 1930s and used these visits as evidence for her report. One of the major charges was that both Warden McKenty and Deputy Warden Robert Myers had upwards of 12 family members on the prison payroll, being paid around $36,000 annually. According to this Philadelphia Inquirer article, the last report of the prison payroll.
And he's not kidding about that. They actually did.
yeah. So they had they will have their wives, they might have their children on payroll. If they're old enough, they might have cousins and relatives. So all that money that's supposed to go for their housing for the people in the building, or to maintain this building, might not go to the people. They actually go to their family members, or their friends that you want to pay off or something, or to go gamble. Some of them had little gambling halls out throughout Philadelphia. So some of them would go and gamble. They have their own little
Yep.
speakeasies, and go and gamble off for their money, off the money that they get. It was a whole mess.
Right.
Philadelphia um, penitentiary was actually really a mess after a certain time.
Okay, here we go.
Payroll indicated that two of McKenty's sons were employed by the prison.
See?
McKenty, in turn, threatened to file a libel lawsuit against the Civil Service Reform Association. Although the association ultimately retracted the charges against McKenty, the criticisms and accusations continued to mount. Outside the walls, a public battle between McKenty and prison critics like Morris were going on in the newspapers, like this headline: "Prison here branded an outpost of hell." At the same time, on the inside, the problems with the overcrowded, mismanaged prison were being depicted through detailed illustrations and cartoons by a man named Frederick Funk. Funk, also known as Edward Mitchell, was born in.
Now this is all the prisoners that they had in there.
Yep.
The ones that are crossed out, or the ones that are no longer, they had crossed out, was no longer alive. The ones
Or
in the
they
red, if I remember correctly, the ones in the red are the high priority prisoners. And it looks like the first one up on the left hand side, he was labeled escape. It looks like it says escape.
he was known for escaping. This guy had escaped this penitentiary at least 23 times. He would climb over the wall and literally escape. They found him in West Philadelphia at one point, northeast, and another point, and somewhere in the southeast Philadelphia at one point.
He
This
was the
guy
one
was
that
an
got. He was the first one that got moved. Not one of the first ones, but he got moved over to Alcatraz because they thought he couldn't break free out of that one.
Yeah, well, he also escaped there by literally towering down. Don't ask me how he did it. This guy got on a boat and tried to get out, but unfortunately did not make it because they had their own thing, and they came and brought him back. And this time he was not getting out. So yeah, Alcatraz, you tried to get out, but no,
No,
they
they
were not
didn't.
playing
They could never found them. They thought they drowned.
it.
The
Yeah,
three guys,
yeah, true. They did
him
throw
and
his.
the other two guys that were with him, had they think they were drowned. They were never found to this day.
I thought they made it, or did they drown?
No, they did not. No, they never been found.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they
That's
still talk
amazing.
about it. It's like wow, and I didn't realize when I looked at the name here, I was like, oh shit, that's the guy they put over in Alcatraz.
Yep, that's the guy who drowned in. That is the one that actually drowned because he climbed over. He tried to climb over, and him and his friends tried to go in the boat, and the boat turned or something, and they drowned.
Yep. Okay, here we go.
1885 in Buffalo, New York, and was incarcerated in Eastern State twice between 1918 and 1930 for forgery and larceny charges.
Yep.
Funk's vivid cartoons, seen here, depict rat infestations in the overcrowded exercise yard, courtroom scenes over charges of nepotism, and Deputy Warden Robert Byers accused abusive tactics toward prisoners.
Yep.
We know that Funk wrote letters to Wharton Morris throughout his incarceration and later mailed these illustrations to her toward the end of his time at Eastern State. We actually...
What, Angie?
The bottom of my can is now deformed.
Uh-oh.
I swear I've only picked it up and sipped it. I haven't slammed it down or dropped it or anything. There's no reason why it should be deformed.
Oh boy. Well, I don't know.
I don't know either, but that's creepy.
Okay, here we go.
have photographs of the correspondence that's seen here. For everyone watching, what stands out to you about these cartoons? Is there anything that you see that's surprising? Feel free to answer below.
Okay, can you see what stands out?
The guy walking with a cast on his arm and the rats and stuff.
Yep.
And the soldiers, the police officers that are like literally at him. Yeah, that's just horrible. And all the people of the Eastern State Penitentiary. That's a lot of people.
Okay, I'm not on the StreamYard side. I'm over on the other side because I got to, constantly pause it every now and then. So if you let me know if you see what we had happen last night, let me know right away.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Excuse me.
In the comments. To me, these cartoons reveal both Frederick Funk's artistic skill and eye for detail, but also his sharp wit and observations of prison problems. Another important note is that Funk also served as a secretary for the Honor and Friendship Club, a prison club responsible for everything from organizing music events within the walls to raising money to donate to the Red Cross. According to the publication, the OE Library Critic, Eastern State's Honor and Friendship Club also sent an appeal to Governor William Sproul for relief from poor prison conditions. Calls on Governor Sproul to investigate the prison occurred repeatedly throughout the early 1920s, resulting in multiple grand jury reports about Eastern State prison conditions. But it wasn't until April of 1923 that the largest, most comprehensive grand jury report was written, eventually laying the groundwork for major overhauls to the prison's administration and infrastructure. Issues of drug trafficking, nepotism, and corruption were repeatedly detailed in earlier reports. However, in March of 1923, a unique problem occurred when a body of prisoners who refer to themselves as the Four Horsemen overtook the prison, set up a temporary...
Okay, the Four Horsemen. The tale still goes on. There's one of the Four Horsemen that in Pennsylvania, over by Moonshine Church, the person rides through there, he is headless.
It's also said that the Four Horsemen, he was one of them people that takes the soul.
Yep.
He was one of the guys who takes the soul. So
Yep.
guess the horseman that they are talking about was Death. He would ride over and he would take the soul.
No, these are the four horse. These are four prisoners that call themselves.
Yeah, they call themselves the Four Horsemen. But what I'm saying is, the story goes that they all got they all had gone well, it's so called. We'll find out through him. But from what the story I've heard and looked, the Four Horsemen all died. There's one horseman that still to this day is a spirit. Does not, because they all got hung back then. Back then they didn't leave it. I mean, they did the gun or they hanged them. Well, back then in Pennsylvania, they hung the people. So they end up, their neck could be, their heads are gone. So to this day, when you see the headless horseman around Moonshine Church, there's a spirit that he's coming after.
Yep. Or a person that has, that he is coming to take.
Yep. Okay, here we go.
Office in the Central Surveillance Hub and made demands of prison officials. This uprising led the way for the focus of today's discussion, the April 1923 grand jury investigation. In April of 1923, Governor Gifford Pinchot, who took over from Governor Sproul earlier that January, called on the Department of Welfare to launch an investigation into what was going on at Eastern State Penitentiary. A grand jury was formed to determine if these allegations were true, and if so, to recommend what actions were needed to fix the prison. Unlike the previous investigations, which were conducted exclusively by members of the PA state legislature, this grand jury was composed of citizens and state employees. On this slide, we have two images of members from this grand jury. Let's take a moment to define a grand jury. The previous two Eastern State investigations we discussed were conducted through Pennsylvania legislative.
And if I remember correctly, those that you see there in the pictures are the ones that were the jury people. If I'm seeing this right, and he's explaining it. All these here were jury people.
Yes, those were all the grand jury. They were
Except for off to the side, there's the warden and then the head of the prison. I mean the warden and his second command.
And their
On the
job
right-hand side.
And their job was to, bring the people in, and they would make their judgment.
Yeah. But what you see out of the two pictures, the rest of them are the juries. That's all they had. They didn't do it like they do now, to where they pick your who's paying taxes and they pick you out of there at random. They don't do that. I mean, they do that now, but back then they actually had people that was had to be dedicated to the jury. And if one passed away, then another one come in and fill in that spot. And it should go back to that way, but they changed it. All right, here we go.
Committees. So for us, this is a new mode of investigating. As stated in the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. I kind of think of a grand jury as sort of a...
What are we finding with today?
We have a jury, but you also have, in extreme cases, you have a grand jury. But that's only in the extreme cases. You usually have a jury of your own peer when you're going on under the Constitution. You have a jury of your own peers.
That's what we're fighting today, because they're still not doing it the way it's supposed to be. This is what half of it, the Fifth Amendment, along with the First and the Second. We're still, to this day, fighting with that. So here we go.
The test run for the prosecution before going to trial. According to the offices of United States Attorney's website, if the state or federal government believes someone is guilty of a serious felony level crime, then a prosecutor will present the evidence to an impartial group of citizens called a grand jury, typically composed of 16 to 23 citizens. A grand jury listens to the prosecutor and witnesses and then votes in secret on whether they believe that enough evidence exists to charge the person with a crime. 12 jurors must vote to indict, which will bring the case to a trial jury to determine someone's guilt. Interestingly, not all states use grand juries to indict someone on felony charges, as per a Supreme Court ruling. But the Supreme Court still mandates that all federal felony charges must follow the grand jury procedure. While this scenario is the most common, a prosecutor bringing witnesses and evidence to the assembled grand jury.
And that's where we're having trouble with it today. They're not letting anybody do that. The judges are making their own decision and not following that line like it's supposed to be.
Or you have judges going by, by party line and not by evidence, or
Right.
or by evidence, or by jury. They go by their own rules, by party lines. Okay, you're a Democrat, I'm going to vote on this side. If I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote on this side. They don't go by having a grand jury or having a jury of their peers.
A lot of people are fighting for that, and a lot of the judges won't grant it. So that's what we are fighting for right now. Here we go.
Jury, a special grand jury can sometimes, as stated in the U.S. Attorney's Manual, fashion a report potentially for public release concerning either organized crime conditions in the district or the non-criminal misconduct in office of appointed public officers or employees. This is exactly what the 1923 grand jury investigating Ward and Robert McKintie's administration did, and one reason why we know so much about this particular scandal. The most helpful document related to the 1923 investigation we have is the supplemental report of the April grand jury. In this 36-page document, the grand jury lays out all their findings after interviewing over 100 people connected to the prison and totaling in 1,250.
Now pay attention close to this part, because he's going to tell you exactly what was what. This report that he had, you cannot find no more. You cannot find this report.
You go to the Pennsylvania Archive, www.pennsylvaniaarchive.org. You can actually look up the archives of the different things of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. But you got to go to that archive site.
Okay, they changed that around then.
Yeah, we have. Like I said,
if you went to the historical site, you know how the old days you had to go to the historical site. Historical. They could not. I mean, you look for it. They don't have this document.
Like I said, if you want to find out about Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the surrounding counties and their different historical sites and stuff like that, go to www.pennsylvaniaarchive.org, and it will show you all kinds of archives from Pennsylvania, from up to Bucks County down to Philadelphia County, and it'll show you all kinds of archives from the Constitution, to how the first draft of the Constitution, to the stuff of the Eastern State Penitentiary. It's really good, a good read, and it's a good thing to look at, and it's good for kids to learn for history, especially here in Pennsylvania. This is good Pennsylvania history, because if you look at the archive, this will tell you what they did here in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, at the time when somebody was corrupt in a jail system. Today, our police system is somewhat, discarded. But back then, they had a grand jury that sat down and literally looked over everything, and they interviewed, talked to the people, talked to the prisoners, and asked their view of what's going on. And they actually, put it down on paper and then told their findings to the judge. And that's how they got their ruling. So like I said, if you want to find out things like that, go to the archive, Pennsylvania Archive.org. You'll find it there.
Okay. Here we go, guys.
53 pages of testimony. They describe their findings at the end of the document as almost beyond belief. And what follows are their major findings. For this grand jury, their biggest concern was the startling amount of narcotics within Eastern State's walls. They report that as of March 1st, 1923, the number of people addicted to drugs at Eastern State ranged from a minimum of 50 to a possible 500. They go on to say that they believe it a reasonable conclusion that there were between 200 and 400 addicts who were being actively supplied with narcotics, principally heroin. One prisoner is quoted as saying that there was enough dope had been brought in to keep a city going. The grand jury determines that the contraband was brought in mainly by visitors who were loosely watched or not watched at all, and through guards and overseers as well. It's also revealed that drugs were smuggled in lead pencils, leaves of books, and art.
And you got to remember, back then, they didn't pat the people down that came to visit. Nobody
They
was
do
pat
that
down
now.
back then.
They pat them
Back then-
down now, and it still happens.
No, I mean, literally, back then, they didn't pat down. If you came in to visit, all you did was sign a paper that you're there to visit. You go in. They didn't have the glass up or anything like that at that time. So they were allowed to touch, hug, whatever. But yeah, that's how they were. A lot of the visitors were bringing in the dope and everything. So yeah, they had a hell of a time with that. You okay?
Yeah.
Wishful, you okay?
Yeah, shut
Okay.
it down.
All right, here we go.
Articles of food, sunken cans of paint and varnish, and even inside of rubber balls that were thrown over the penitentiary walls. Apparently, Warden McKenty was told numerous times of the widespread addiction to narcotics and how frequently they were being smuggled into his prison. But he seemed to dismiss the allegations every time a guard or prisoner brought the problem to his attention. This reminds me of how Warden Cassidy continually waved his hand at charges of brutality toward prisoners with mental illnesses in the 1890s. The grand jury's second finding was rampant production of high-strength liquor in stills located in cells. It's reported that between 40 and 50 stills were confiscated within the last 6 months at the time of this report's writing. Here is a quote from an analysis of the liquor found. This is a raw alcoholic distillate from a fermented mash composed of bread, fruit, raisins, sugar, and other materials capable of fermentation by yeast. It is artificially colored with brown sugar.
And today, they still do that in the prisons. They make their own drinks of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So it has not stopped yet. So you imagine how bad it was back then.
Oh Lord! Somebody was not only alcoholic or drunk. Somebody literally got poisoned and died because the fermentation might not have gone right, or they put the wrong ingredients to it, and somebody met their demise.
Yep. Might as well kiss your butt goodbye.
Because some of them, because they were in a penitentiary, they found rat poisoning, which is arsenic. And they would use some of that to put it into their thing to help it to ferment better. And that did not work well. Some people met their demise, kiss their butt goodbyes, how David McCullum said it in NCIS, dying with the visiting relatives and dying with their ancestors. That's how it would do it. Because after that,
here we go.
Pass.
Okay, here we go.
It contains 36.04% by volume of ethyl grain alcohol. It's important to note that in 1923, prohibition laws were in effect, and it was illegal for anyone to have or consume alcohol in America. The third finding was a total breakdown in discipline within Eastern State. The grand jury makes it clear that for at least a year, there was no uniform standard for discipline. One pardoned prisoner said that the jail was a joke, with another adding, a man who had the good graces of the authorities could go where he pleased. There didn't seem to be any rules for him. This prisoner continued to testify that there were 21 varieties of government within the penitentiary.
And can we guess who that was? who was
Oh.
able to go anywhere in the prisons.
Oh,
And
Al Capone.
yep,
Yep.
that's
He
who
was
he's
allowed to
talking about.
go anywhere he wanted to go.
Yeah, I mean, he was the only one allowed, and he even had the jail cell, regular bed, his chair. Yes, I know you're putting your
He
2 cents
had
in,
a
Abby.
day where he had a glass, actually had a glass bookshelf where he could
Yep,
actually have his books actually stored and see. If you go to Eastern Penitentiary in the back area, they have his a replica of his room, and they have exactly how he had it when he was there. And he had bookcases, and he can go anywhere, and he would have food. I mean, extensive food brought in for him. Like he would go have people go to South Philly, and he would get fish and lobsters from over there because they had a very big seafood over there. So they would go over there and get him the best lobsters and all kinds of food from over there. And he would
yep,
have his own meals in there while everybody else was eating prison slop. Literally, how they would say it, prison slop.
yep, yep.
So he had the run of the whole place, and it was crazy.
Yeah, it was. Here we go.
i.e., 18 varieties put forth by each overseer, one variety by the warden, one variety by the deputy warden, and finally, a variety unique unto itself, practiced by the inmates. The fourth finding was described as the era of self-government. This section primarily deals with the discovery of the Committee of the Four Horsemen, who basically ran Eastern State from mid-March to mid-April of 1923, initiating a, quote, carnival of assaults and outbreaks of drunkenness. According to the grand jury report, a week before the uprising, members of the Board of Inspectors came to the prison to speak to prisoners, which the grand jury thought was an ill-advised appeal for cooperation. A committee of prisoners formed and asked to be recognized as a formal governing body within the prison. Pictured here is one of the members of the Four Horsemen, Charles Stark C. 1060. He was transferred to Western State Penitentiary after this whole ordeal. According to the report, Warden Robert McKinty decided to officially recognize this committee of four. They called themselves the Four Horsemen. The committee promptly set up an office, issued cards of authority, and appointed positions as delegates, peacemakers, and committeemen. The committee also corresponded with Deputy Warden Byers to make requests. According to the report, chaos ensued during this period, jeopardizing the safety of other prisoners and guards. Prison officials disbanded the committee by April after sending 50 people involved with the uprising to Western State Penitentiary. While the writers of the grand jury report seem to regard the Committee of the Four Horsemen as essentially agents of chaos, danger, and mayhem, this section raises important questions about how people who are incarcerated can and should be able to advocate for change within prison.
Now, it's going to come up to where it's going to be a trigger warning. I believe he's going to talk about what happened to them. They're either going to be hung or they're going to be shot. I'm hoping he did not show the pictures. If they do, I'll try to skip forward it quick.
Yeah, because it's really graphic.
Yeah.
It is very graphic of how they died, and it was very sad. Because the only thing they wanted to do was have a voice for the prisoners in the Eastern State, but it wasn't like that.
Right. Okay, here we go.
I think incarcerated people should advocate for change in their prison. The fifth and final section of the findings report, titled Other Elements of Mismanagement, discusses numerous other issues present within Eastern State. Major highlights from this section include favoritism for some prisoners by receiving unusual and unfair privileges accorded to them by the warden and also the deputy warden. The next section details a breakdown in visitation policy, such as sex workers and former prisoners coming to the prison. The following finding, simply titled Immorality, discusses a syndicated use of male prisoner sex trafficking to make money for buying narcotics, and all of this was controlled and operated by older prisoners. The grand jury also discusses the role of women within this predominantly male facility. Frequently, men were able to enter the cell block reserved for women, and an iron gate was not installed in that cell block until after this grand jury's first visit. They also mentioned how women are not allowed to stay in the hospital block. So if a female prisoner needed surgery,
Now, he's going to talk about the female section. The female section was harder. The officers were harder on them than they were with the other prisoners.
Some of the girls
They
had,
actually got I'm going to say rep because I'm not going to say the other word.
yeah, they were
And
assaulted.
yeah, and stuff. So they were abused heavily. So this might get this part will be kind of triggering.
There's a girl. Hold up. If they don't tell you the story, there's a girl. If they don't tell you the story here, I'll tell you. There was a girl in there named Emily. She was only about 18 or 20 when she was put in there. Apparently, they said that she assaulted her whole family, and they put her in there, and she was assaulted by one of the people in there, and she got pregnant. But because they couldn't, the female wasn't allowed to go in the medical ward. She literally gave birth in her cell, but apparently it was a complication, and both her and the baby, which was a little girl, passed away, and that was because the guys had the run of the prison, so they couldn't go into the female's cells and do whatever they want to them and not get in trouble. But if the female did something, they were punished harshly. So if that didn't be told to y'all, I just want y'all to know that one. I think that one was in there.
That's cool. Here we go.
they are operated on and then immediately sent back to their cell. At the time of the report, there were 51 women in the penitentiary, and 2 of them had babies with them. The condition of food in the penitentiary is also discussed at length, and the pan-graft practices that were in place. Prisoners reported to the grand jury that the food was constantly terrible, except for the upwards of 200 pans of the best portions of food that were especially served each day to persons who would pay 25 cents a pan. God help the ordinary prisoner without money, one person told the jury.
Huh?
I said, damn, that's messed up.
Yeah. So if you wanted good food, you had to pay an extra 25 cents for that metal plate. If you didn't have it, you got the slop.
Yep. Prison slop, we call it.
Yep.
And it could be consist of just bread, or it could be stale food, or something like that.
Or it could be either, I don't want to be gross. I don't mean to be gross, but either in their feces.
Yeah, that too. Too.
Some of them even got freaking scurvy, which is weird because you think of that as a pirate thing.
Yep. Yep.
And believe it or not, they actually, some people actually got dysentery because of that, because the food was so. And imagine a person who was allergic to penicillin, like I am. Mold can be a very deadly thing for a person who is allergic to penicillin.
I'm the same way. I'm allergic to penicillin.
Yeah, me too. So if God forbid if I was in that prison and I had to eat that and it had mold in it, I can literally die. So that means some of the people who were probably allergic to the penicillin probably did not live another day because the food was so bad that their stomach couldn't handle it and they died because it was disgusting and stuff. So just giving you a true warning, we are graphic on this because that's how they are in that prison.
Yep. Here we go.
Finally, the jury discloses information on overcrowding at Eastern State Penitentiary. As of May 21st, 1923, they report that 1,682 people are incarcerated at Eastern State with only 822 cells available. They further break down how many people are actually in each cell. 211 cells with 1 man each, 388 cells with 2 men each, 195 with 3 men each, 7 cells with 4 men each, 7 cells with 6 men each, and 1 cell with 7 men. While the cells with 6 and 7 men are double cells, that is still a lot of people confined to one space.
And you got to remember, depending on what level you are on, is how big the cells are.
Yep.
So
And if
big.
you're in confinement, you're kind of in a small cell with one person, and their
Yep.
confinement cells are so small. They, I mean, you can literally go stir crazy. And they
You
even had
have
cells
no way of move. I mean, the only way you can move is sideways.
Yep, and they even had cells that were in underneath, so they were literally darkened. And you can go if they when it was open, you could go down there. You could see the scratch marks of the people who have scratched the wall because they literally were
With their bare
darkened
hands, yeah.
no light, no nothing in there, and they just sitting there going stir crazy because it's too
I
dark.
mean, if you had to sit there, wouldn't you go stir crazy?
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
Exactly.
you know,
All
they
right, here we
even
go.
did a thing over in Eastern State. They had it the people go and stand in the where the solitary confinement was. You had to stand in there for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. People couldn't even handle it for 1 minute. So you can imagine what they felt like for hours, days, weeks, months in the room. People were asked to stay in there for 5 minutes to see how they felt. People couldn't even stay in there for 1 minute. I tried it. I couldn't even stay in there for 10 minutes because it was so confined and so
I
small.
did not try it.
I did, and I literally freaked out. I had to get out. It was like 10
Yeah, it's
minutes.
like yeah, it was a phobia.
Yeah. And I mean,
And
I couldn't do it for 10 minutes. So can you imagine what them people felt for like an hour, 2 hours, a
Yep.
day, a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year? That's crazy. They must went crazy, and they said people peeled off. Echo, stop, please.
Yep. Okay,
But
here we go.
they went
Go ahead.
crazy.
Go ahead, Wishful. Finish. Sorry.
No, I was just saying they went crazy in them confinement cells. They peeled off their skins and stuff and nails and stuff because they went crazy and they started trying to,
Yeah, they weren't getting. Yeah, they weren't interacting.
so they were literally going crazy. But
Yep.
when they changed it, you'll see how they made it better for themselves, and it actually wound up working out really well for them.
Yep. Okay, here we go. Trigger warning, guys.
Seriously.
After reporting of their findings, the grand jury offered 16 recommendations to the governor, and here are some of the highlights. The first recommendation is the demand that all culpable officials resign and better training for guards is implemented. Further demands were to prepare and enforce a new manual of rules and regulations for prisoners, segregate boys, young men, and first offenders from the older population, improve food preparation, ensure that no one receives special food, and create a communal cafeteria instead of eating inside of cells. Remove female prisoners to another facility. Create a new and more controlled visitation plan so visitors do not enter through the cell blocks. Implement fairer wages and provide work for every prisoner so no one sits in their cell idle. Transfer at least 500 prisoners to other prisons. And finally, the grand jury recommends that the governor should close Eastern State Penitentiary and move the prison to another location outside of Philadelphia. Bottom line, the best way to fix the prison was to close it, in the grand jury's opinion.
They end up moving it, from what I understand. They end up moving to another facility, didn't they? That was
uh,
bigger.
No, they kept it open for a while, but then, like in the 1960s, 61 or something, or 70s, they closed it down.
Yeah, I think it was in the late 70s. I think we'll find out here in a second. No, I know what they did. They added on. That's what they did.
Yes.
So, yeah, interesting. Okay, here we go.
It appears that most of these recommendations were followed throughout the years. McKenty and Myers resigned, and Colonel John Groom was brought in to be the new warden. He fired 90 out of 115 guards on his staff, believing them to be incompetent, corrupt, or too old for service. He also ordered the construction of the cafeteria, nicknamed Sioux Valley, ordered the installation of the now iconic massive iron gate, and improved corner tower.
Okay, that gate, that from that they showed before. They had to replace that gate a couple years ago because it was rusted that bad. You go to touch it, it would just break apart.
Well, actually, what happened was there was a bad storm, and the lightning hit that gate. The gate literally was cracked to the point that it was like literally almost falling over. So they
Yeah.
took the gate and removed it and put the new gate on there.
But that is the warden's area, what they're showing right now. If I believe so, if I'm correct, that's the warden's area.
Tower, yes, the tower
That's
was
what they are.
the tower was actually the warden area where the warden
Yep.
would stay. And they would have also some of the guards would stay because
On certain days, if you go by there, you could still see somebody standing there.
Yep.
of a guard because there was a big breakout, trying to have a breakout, and a couple of guards lost their lives. Wow, they said there was one lone guardman that stayed in the tower, and sadly he passed away. He was unalive, and
Yep.
they said if you go by that night, you can still see him sitting up there watching over the prison, making sure no prisoner is out. Just a little tidbit.
Yep. Okay, here we go.
With armed guards. Warden Groom also oversaw the transfer of the women that were being held at Eastern State Penitentiary. Groom's administration also marks a change in the type of person who becomes an Eastern State Guard, transitioning from a craftsman background to a police or military background. Later on, the construction of Cell Block 14, a 3-story cell block, was approved and then opened in 1927 to house juveniles, younger men, and new prisoners. Unfortunately, Eastern State was not able to provide everyone with daily work, probably due to a lack of space for the creation of workshops for everyone, but the prison did strive to give everyone something to do within the walls, even if it was recreation time. And finally, a new prison called SCI Graterford opened in 1928 on 1,800 acres of farmland, 35 miles outside of Philadelphia. Referred to as Eastern State's farm branch because the prison's food was largely grown here at Graterford. Graterford actually recently just closed to make way for what I kind of think of as Eastern State 3.0, SCI Phoenix, which...
Okay. That's how big Eastern Penitentiary is. And
No,
today it's even bigger because they used the back half.
This is the outer
Huh?
branch of Eastern State. This was out of Pennsylvania. This was up
Yep.
towards County, but this is where they grew their food at, and this is where some of the prisoners were sent. Instead of being in Eastern State, they would go up here, and they would go and do gardening. You know, they would learn agriculture and stuff like that. That branch. There were 2 branches. The one in Philadelphia, and then this was up in, like I think, up in Bucks County or Montgomery County, one of the 2. But that's where they would go and grow food and learn agriculture and other skills up there. This is the second branch. This is up in, I think this is Montgomery County. Don't hold me to it. I will look it up so I can find out. But I think that's Montgomery County. But that was the second branch. Eastern State was actually bigger than this one. And then they closed it down and they made another branch to it. So the other branch.
Right. Okay, here we go.
According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, took more than a decade to complete, cost more than $400 million, and will house almost 4,000 people. This image here, a satellite view of SCI Phoenix, shows how close it is to the now closed Graterford prison to the left. Ultimately, Eastern State attempted to make changes, but it was still behind the times. Penological developments of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, the beginning of the so-called era of rehabilitation, largely bypassed Eastern State due to the apathy connected with the constantly anticipated closing of the institution and its replacement by the facility at Graterford. While Graterford did alleviate some overcrowding problems, Pennsylvania still needed Eastern State cells, as newer prisons were slowly being built throughout the rest of the 20th century. Today, we explored the 1923 investigation and what it revealed about a prison only a few decades away from obsolescence and ultimate closure in 1971. We also explored the vital role that voices of incarcerated people like Frederick Funk played in mirroring the problems revealed in this investigation. His cartoons highlight art as a form not only of communicating the experiences of incarceration.
Okay, I'm gonna let this finish out because we only got like three, about 4 minutes left. So we just let it play out, and then I'll switch over to the other one. We can talk about what we need to talk about on this one then.
Okay.
But also as a form of resistance against the oppressive systems of the prison. Currently on display at Eastern State is the art installation by the formerly incarcerated artist Jesse Crimes called Apocalyptine 16389067111. This work reveals abstract representations of hell, earth, and heaven depicted on the walls of an individual cell, which you can see here. In the audio stop, Crimes details his process of making the work while incarcerated, cutting up clips from the New York Times and transferring clippings onto prison-issued bed sheets using hair gel. Interesting similarities arise between our discussion of Frederick Funk's cartoons and Jesse Crimes' installation, specifically the role of the newspaper in both people's artwork. Just as Funk used his drawings to depict the corruption and nepotism charges being publicized in the newspapers, Crimes also relied on imagery and text from the New York Times to create his work. Additionally, like Funk, who mailed his cartoons to Anna Wharton Morris, Crimes also mailed out each sheet panel until he could piece them together after his release. Another example of art programming visitors can see displayed at Eastern State is Hidden Lives Illuminated, a series of animated shorts created by incarcerated people in Pennsylvania, which were projected on the exterior wall last summer.
Yep.
Here are two stills from a work called Justice, done by Jerome L., while incarcerated at the State Correctional Institution at Chester, whose animation style reminds me of Frederick Funk's art style. And here are stills from a collective animation called You Can Go Left or Right, created by women incarcerated at Riverside Correctional Facility for Women. What strikes you about these artworks? Were there any images that were interesting or surprising? And be sure to check out all of our artist installations and the Hidden Lives Illuminated videos at Eastern State Penitentiary. When looking back over the course of this series, a few major takeaways appeared right away. Firstly, like many dominant historical narratives, focus is placed on the men who were in charge, but it was interesting to learn how civilians, family members of the incarcerated, and lower-level prison staff went outside of the prison power structure to try to bring attention to abuses occurring. Second, what a prison investigation looks like can take many surprising shapes and forms, and today they are more diverse than ever. However, with all the diverse systems in place, is justice being achieved? Are the people in charge being held accountable? And more generally, what does that accountability look like? These are all questions that we've been grappling with over the past few weeks. And finally, the power, creativity, and courage incarcerated Americans have demonstrated to advocate, create change, and fight for awareness about the conditions of their prisons has been inspiring over the course of our research. And I hope that they have also been a source of inspiration for everyone watching as well. Thank you so much for going on this journey with us here on Eastern State's Facebook page. We'd like to give a special thanks to Erica Harmon, Annie Anderson, Damon McCool, and Eastern State's Education Department for supporting and enriching this project. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to see updates on future programming, both virtual and on-site.
Okay.
Like I said, people, if you really want to get the full thing of Eastern State Penitentiary, take yourself over there to Eastern State Penitentiary, located in Fairmont, Philadelphia. You will learn a lot from what they lived in, to the arts, to actual displays of the different incarcerated people that were in there. It's a very big and it's very enriching stories in there.
Yeah.
Hello all, my name is Connor and I'm an educator here at Eastern State.
Okay. The next one, number 2, is investigation from 1834. He has them backwards. But this will kind of help explain what he didn't talk about from the other one.
Also, like I said, also if you're ever here in Philadelphia, go look up something called Haunted Philadelphia. The one place that they will go here in Philadelphia, Eastern State Penitentiary.
And
That's, go
they've
ahead.
gone to Eastern State so many times. It's ridiculous.
It is actually Eastern State Penitentiary. It's actually listed as the second most haunted place in the world.
Yep.
Yes, if you look it up, it is actually on the top two haunted places in the world. Eastern State Penitentiary, and
Yeah, yeah.
you can find it on look up Ghost Hunters, and they were here, and also Haunted America on the
Ghost Labs was even in there.
huh?
Ghost Labs was too.
I just said that Ghost Hunters and Haunted Americas have been here. Also other been here too. Discovery had a group that came here. They came to learn about it. Also, the
The
History
only
Channel.
one, the only one you do not follow out of the out of the hunters, the ghost hunters, is the most haunted. Do not listen to them. And there's
Yeah,
another
I like
one. It's a young gentleman. I can't think what he goes by. Eastern Paranormal, I think. He's another one. Do not listen to him. Those two you do not want to listen to because all they do is add effects and they're not actually capturing anything.
like I said, if you want to know about haunted things, everything Philadelphia and haunted. Like I said, ghost hunters, they're legit. And Haunted
Ghost,
America is also known as a legit. They go all over the United States and around the world to different places that are haunted. Destination America, that's the name. Destination Station. Channel. The Destination Channel. You can find it on there. Haunted America, where they go to different places in America. From up in Harrisburg, where they have the Gettysburg Address and the Gettysburg, the fight in Gettysburg to Eastern State Penitentiary down to Old City, Philadelphia, which is the oldest part of Philadelphia. There is where our state house is, where the actual Constitution was written. It wasn't written in June, everybody. It was actually written in September. I learned that when I was over there. And if you're down there, they also have something called the Constitution Center. And there
oh wow.
you can actually see the Liberty Bell, the actual Liberty Bell that sat up on there in the old church up there that would ring. But because it got dented, apparently somebody they were moving it and it got dropped and there's a big crack in it. They dropped it and
Sis,
it got
you're
dropped.
cracking. You're crackling a little bit. Do you have your phone near the laptop?
Nope. No, I have nothing on my chest.
Huh.
That might be it too. But if you go to, like I said, if you go to like Old City and you go there, you can actually see the Liberty Bell. That's why they call it the Constitution Center. And
Wishful, you're crackling a lot.
That's why I was saying if she had something near it because you
no,
normally don't crackle like
because
that.
my tablet is hot. My tablet is very hot, which means that my
Oh,
tablet.
that might be why you're crackling if it's really hot.
So I might have to jump off.
Okay.
My tablet and that is because it's my voice thing is crackling and my thing is very hot. So I'm going to say
Okay.
goodnight, everybody. I'll be listening and listening, but my thing is kind of too hot. So I have to turn it off.
Why don't you come down here?
Because my leg, I've been moving. Everywhere I went to was the bathroom. They turned off the air. My leg is acting weird as hell. But I can do that too. You know what? I'll do that. I'll be right. I'm coming down to her.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll
I
wait
was
till
gonna
you get
say
down there
because
and I'll start it.
we live in the same house,
Yeah.
so
I'll wait till she's down there with you, and then I'll start it.
Okay. Oh, I gotta make more coffee. Because I can
Okay.
already hear her planning on my coffee. I didn't make any more. I just opened up my Monster and started drinking that.
I'm down to a little bit in my soda. I gotta be careful, or otherwise I ain't have nothing to drink tomorrow morning. Getting my sugar up.
Well, the Monster keeps me awake.
I can't take Monster because with the caffeine that's in it, it's like a steroid. I will
Yeah.
be literally in a panic attack.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no fun. Hi, Tabby. I'm not on that screen. I can't show you, sweetheart. Hold on. You can come up, Tabby.
Mhm.
You coming over? You coming over here to lay with Mama?
Tappy!
Sugar just put her head up like, who's calling?
Hi, Sugar. I'm sorry.
Sugar, it's on my computer. It's on my computer, baby.
Sugar, do, 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 do. Oh, honey, honey.
You're my candy girl, and you got me wanting you. Yes, I remember that from Grandpa.
Oh, baby, I thought I was the only candy girl.
You are my candy girl. And you know we're on high public. You know we're on live, right?
What? Just saying what? That I'm your candy girl? I mean, come on.
You are my candy girl.
Exactly. Put your butt down and stop.
I can't see, sorry. Like I said, also, if you're here in Philly,
What did you drop? My cell phone.
if you're ever in Philadelphia, there's some places. There's also a place called Love Park, and they have this famous sign.
Man, Love Park. They changed Love Park like 3 times already. I'm so mad at them.
But no, I'm just telling them about the love sign. That is the most famous sign here in Philadelphia. The love sign. People take their pictures, their marriage pictures, their wedding pictures, all kind of pictures at the love sign. They also have this cool here is the art museum, also known as the Rocky Steps. People go running up them steps all the time.
We did it when we first got here.
Yep, and it's also best known
right before I went into a full asthma attack.
Yeah. And you go up on the steps and you jump around just like Rocky did in his 1976 movie Rocky. That's a really cool steps. And when it snows really badly here, the kids will go over to the steps and go down the steps and into the snow.
Get back up and
go back up there.
Yeah, well, they said that they took that statue down, and actually Sylvester Stallone bought that.
No, what the statue?
The statue of Sylvester Stallone.
When the hell did they take that down?
No, that's still up there.
Is it? Because 2 years ago they said they were taking it down because it was part of abuse to history.
Well,
No, and Sylvester Stallone bought it, and Sylvester Stallone paid cash for that.
Yeah, they kept it up there because they actually made a holiday here called Rocky Day, and Sylvester Stallone and his kids was actually here to commemorate that holiday, which is called a Rocky Day. And they had a 10-year-old boy who actually was in an accident here in Philadelphia. He was the one who actually gave the commitment speech for this day, and it was really cool. And it was called Rocky's Day. But that is the most famous place there, You go there and you can go all kinds of places, or Rittenhouse Square. That's also another good place. You go over there and it's a park there, and it's very pretty. And it's like a richy area, but it's really nice. It's a very big.
That whole part of the neighborhood's a richy area. What you talking about?
Yeah, but it's a very nice park. I'm sorry, I love that park, Rittenhouse Square. I love that park because
but that dog park over there, that is dangerous.
Yeah, they got a big dog park over there.
And
Wow.
it's not even the dogs that are dangerous. It's the fact that, okay, the dog park's on the hill, there's no fence, and there's a highway below.
That's
Oh,
not.
that's
Oh,
dangerous.
that's not Rittenhouse.
Yeah, that's Fairmont.
That's Fairmont Park.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
That's one of our famous parks too. Fairmont Park is a very big park. It goes from North Philadelphia all the way to
Still
west,
dangerous, though.
and it goes right under the Kelly Drive and Kelly Drive and Martin Luther King Drive, and also I-95. And there's a park up there that everybody people are telling them they need to put a fence up there because their dogs could go down there and get hit by a car, and that have happened. A lady literally lost her pit bull because a pit bull went running and got hit by one of the cars that were going by. So, and
Wow.
it's right by the Schuylkill River, which is also very pretty. Like
Yeah.
I said, Philadelphia has some really pretty places. It's also got a big cemetery up here in North Philadelphia called Lauren Hill, and the designs in there are very beautiful, and it's very quiet, and it's right near the Schuylkill River. And then on the other side is the Delaware River, and we have the Riverbank Park. Oh yeah, we also got the Delaware Plaza where
Yep.
you can go and um, go on a Ferris wheel there. It also turns from an ice skating. It has an ice skating ring, and
Mm-hmm.
it has a water park in the summertime for the kids. And then there's a sister park that has the same thing right by the church called St. Paul Peter's Basilica. So Philadelphia has a lot of stuff you could come and see if you just come out here. And yes, I'm actually asking as the Philadelphia visitor tour. It's
Okay,
really
let's get.
pretty out here.
Put it
All
this
right,
way,
let's.
fun for tourists.
Yes, that's why I'm trying to say tourists
Yeah.
can come here.
Yep.
Jeez.
Okay, guys, let's get this one going because it's already 9:25. If you want to get
10:25 here.
so, let's get going here. Otherwise, we ain't gonna finish this.
State Penitentiary Historic Site. Thank you for joining us today on Facebook for this presentation on the first investigation in Eastern States history, written by my colleague Christine and myself. Today, we will discuss the complex story of Eastern State Penitentiary's very first scandal in 1834, when an investigation into the prison was launched by a joint committee from the state legislature composed of state senators and representatives. This investigation was ignited by claims brought to Pennsylvania's Attorney General by employees of the penitentiary. Before we go any further, please note that the content and language of today's discussion is sensitive and potentially disturbing in nature
Trigger.
as it relates to physical punishment
Warning.
and abuse. I will frame individual passages with a content warning, but know that this program might not be appropriate for younger learners. Through an examination of the report written by the Legislative Committee, we will explore the ways in which varying perspectives and voices both complicate and illuminate what happened in 1834. We will also explore several investigations into prison.
Okay, if I remember correctly, this is the actual one that does show graphics. So if I can catch the graphic in time, I'll try to not speed over it, but
Yeah.
I'll try to get the overlay up real quick.
But if it does show, just giving you a heads up, trigger warning can be very graphic, and viewers' discretion is highly advised because they are showing some graphic stuff and might not be suitable for younger audience. So if you are a younger audience, please don't be watching this.
Wishful, do me a favor. Type in trigger warning and then post it so that way people know that it is trigger warning in this one.
What are you asking for?
Trigger warning. I'm not up in my room. I'm on her phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. I know. But I need trigger warning written and then posted.
Do we get banners like you can do down in the bottom? So we can do that on the bottom so that therefore it could just go
I
crossing?
just put it at the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you could see it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
see
you can
it.
see the banner. You can see, yeah. I'm looking
Okay,
on my
thank you.
phone. I'm looking on
That's
my
good.
phone.
Thank you.
You can see it.
Yeah, thank you. Good idea. Just for people who will know. If you're sensitive, please note this might not be for you. You can step out. We will not be mad or upset about it. It might be not suitable for you. So we're just giving a warning now. You have been warned.
Yep,
You
yep.
have been warned.
All right, here we go.
Here you go.
It was
Citizens
disgusting.
today to understand how the prison investigation process has evolved since the 1830s and consider questions like, how are prisons held accountable for problems that go on inside the walls? And what does a prison investigation look like today? If at any time throughout the presentation you have answers to these questions posed or questions about Eastern State, throw them in the comments section and I'll be more than happy to try to help answer them.
All right.
When
Sorry.
Eastern State Penitentiary opened in 1829, its founders and supporters considered the prison separate system, a system of complete solitary confinement for all prisoners, as a groundbreaking and rehabilitative reform. Supporters had high expectations for the prison's founding correctional.
Hey, that is the new part of the prison that they were starting to build. That was the new part of the prison.
And that's what I was talking about, where we had to do, they did an experiment where they were showing you the confinement areas and told you to
Yep.
sit in there for 5 minutes to see how they felt. I couldn't even stay in there for 10 minutes because of it being so confining. So,
Oh no, I did do it.
uh-huh.
I did not last that long. I think I jumped in and jumped out.
Yeah. Because it was really, if you go
I
on,
already
Trust me, I know how Gray and Jason felt, when they were in there in the ghost labs. Yeah, they
yeah.
Graham
Graham went in there for 5 minutes and literally bolted out of there.
well, I'm also like highly sensitive, so
Me too. So
Yeah, y'all are, I think. All right, here we go.
Philosophy, and for the prison's first warden, Samuel R. Wood. However, just 5 years after Eastern State Penitentiary opened, there were mounting concerns about prison mismanagement voiced within the Pennsylvania State Legislature. Specifically, concerns that wealth and family connections were about to sanctify fraud, immense and palpable peculation, meaning theft, and cruelty were within the prison walls. The legislature appointed a joint committee from the Senate and House in December of 1834 to be in charge of investigating the prison and drawing conclusions. Before the official 1834 investigation, an earlier informal inquiry began in 1833.
That's the old Harrisburg building before they redid it. That's Capitol. That's the old Harrisburg.
oh yeah.
yeah, that is the Harrisburg
Yeah.
State House.
Wow. You look at that and you look at what it turned into now. It's like, whoa. That's history. I mean,
Look at the old Eastern State Penitentiary and look at it now. It's so
yeah, I
different.
know. It's like so many changes. Okay, here we go.
When prison employees raised problems going on within the prison to Judge Charles Cox, who was president of the Board of Inspectors of Eastern State Penitentiary. Basically, those were the guys who were in charge of the big picture of the prison. The prison inspectors ultimately did nothing, and so several men brought the story to the Attorney General, George M. Dallas, urging him to ask the governor to order an investigation. So basically going from an internal prison investigation to now an external investigation be conducted by the state of Pennsylvania. Attorney General Dallas sent the following letter to Governor George Wolfe, dated November 26. I believe it to be my duty to submit the subject to you that, if deemed necessary, measures may be taken alike to preserve this valuable institution in the esteem of our fellow citizens, to remove all doubts as to its system of discipline and general management, and if abuses really exist, to reform them before much mischief shall be produced. After hearing what Attorney General Dallas had to say, Governor Wolf officially brought charges to investigate Eastern State Penitentiary.
Yeah.
The investigation involved an examination.
See, that's where Tom Wolf comes in. Tom Wolf went back to redo the investigation, and they're finding out that the governor George Wolf. Oh no, it was George Wolf that found that, but Tom Wolf actually did too. He went back and he investigated and he reported a lot more too.
Yeah. I think I gotta go look it up, but I think they two are related. George and John
he's
Wolf.
an ancestor. He is like an ancestor or uncle.
Great grandfather, I believe it is.
I thought it was a great uncle. Oh, we'll find out.
Yeah, I think it's the great grandfather or the great uncle, but I think they're related. I know they're supposed to be related. Why it was so weird.
Yeah. Okie dokie, here we go.
Of 65 witnesses, and hearings were held from December 1834 to January of 1835. Witnesses included prison administrators, employees, and prisoners themselves. The evidence introduced to the committee during the 5 weeks hearing connected 5 total charges brought against the prison. The first charge, licentious and immoral practices by prison officials. Charge number 2, embezzlement and misapplication of public money and labor. Charge number 3, cruel and unusual punishments inflicted on prisoners by order of the warden. Charge number 4, practices such as late night parties on prison grounds. And finally, charge number 5, favoritism shown for prisoners. Today, we'll be focusing specifically on this third charge of cruel and unusual punishment. I'm going to read the direct quote of the charge, but want to acknowledge that the language and description is disturbing to hear and graphic in nature, and it will be discussed separately.
Okay, this one here, I am going to put the overlay up because he's already warning. I am going to put the overlay up. We're going to listen to it till the graphic parts are over.
Just in case, people, because like I said, viewer discretion is highly advised. And if you are a young person, you're not supposed to be on here, so off you go. Off you go.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
All right. That's up, so that way the graphic pictures does not be seen. Fair use. All right, here we go, guys.
Several times in this section of the presentation. Cruel and unusual punishments inflicted by the order of the warden, exemplified in the cases of Matthias Macumsey, in whose mouth an iron bar or gag was so forcibly fastened that his blood collected and suffused in his brain, and he suddenly died upon treatment. Although prison physician Dr. Franklin Bache had recorded Macumsey's death as apoplexy,
I'm glad I put it up
basically
right,
another term for having a stroke, the investigation's majority and minority reports ultimately revealed conflicting conclusions.
What?
Oh, I was joking with Wishful. I said, do me a favor, if you're gonna puke, aim for the sink.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the overlay's up, so we don't have to.
Just very sensitive. Sorry, very sensitive.
It's just her tummy.
All right.
That was not the
about what really happened to Macumsey and whether or not the prison should have been held responsible for his death. Matthias Macumsey was a 42-year-old African-American married laborer from Lancaster County when he arrived at the prison in 1831. On the day that he died, June 27th, 1833, he was placed in the iron gag for talking to the man next to him. To date, no image of Matthias is known to exist. So what we see here are excerpts from the intake log on the day that he arrived to Eastern State and his entry in the death ledger at the bottom of the slide. According to testimony, the iron gag was used on him somewhat regularly. Prison keeper William Bain recalled, "We gagged him 20 or 30 times, and we had put it on him almost every week." A witness to Mackenzie's death, Leonard Flager, described it as a complete blind halter bit, about 6 inches long, about an inch square pallet in the center that goes on top of the tongue. It had 2 curved chains of iron to fasten behind his neck. Rings were there through which a chain was passed to fasten and then lock. An illustration of the iron gag shown here is based.
Okay, that is. Let me take the overlay down so you can see this part at least. That's what they used on them to gag them.
The hell?
I'm not looking. I'm good.
So that little metal part that goes on the tongue, right?
Yep. There you go. That metal part goes on the top. Well, the two pads that you see on the side there went inside the mouth to spread the jaw, and they used the towel and stuff to put in between it.
Okay,
That's how they gagged their prisoners back then.
Okay, I gotta go.
Okay, honey. All right, here we go.
Based on the testimony from the minority report. This illustration calls for the use of the iron gag to be abolished, calling it an implement of torture. The investigating committee asked Warden Wood to produce the iron gag used on Mackenzie in December of 1834, but Wood was unable to produce it and brought a different one for examination. However, later the Attorney General was able to produce the gag used on Mackenzie for the committee's examination. Presently, we do not know what happened to the gag that was examined in this investigation. So once the investigation had concluded, they interviewed everyone they were going to interview. In early 1835, the majority committee ruled and ultimately gave the prison a clean bill of health with a few mild reprimands and suggestions for reform. This majority report ultimately dismissed the charge of cruel and unusual punishment, finding that the gag was not an unusual punishment and had been approved by the prison. Also, according to the majority report, the iron gag was used in the United States Navy and had also been used at the Walnut Street Jail, a 1770s era Philadelphia prison that predated Eastern State. The report went on to conclude that although Mackenzie did in fact die of a stroke while in the gag, the application of the device was not.
What was that?
Where it is.
Oh, that's where the theater is now?
Yes. The Walnut prison that was over in Walnut Street. It is now known as the Walnut Theater, where we have our theaters at, our plays at, the different plays from Aida to The Lion King to Cinderella. To South Pacific to all The King and I. They all have been in the Walnut Theater. That used to be a jail. That's what the Walnut Jail was over there, for Walnut Street. But it's now the Walnut Theater here in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia. That's also a good place to go. The Walnut Theater and the Kimball Center.
What are you doing? Oh. You know.
Oh, yeah. Did I spell it? Nope, I did not.
Okay, here we go.
Or the Kimball Center is another place.
I don't it on the bed.
All right, here we go, guys.
Connected to the events. Prison physician Dr. Franklin Bache did not consider the use of the gag improper, but suggested that the mode of attaching the instrument should be improved. The instrument and the device that's being referred to is the iron gag. However, not all the legislators agreed with the majority report, their biggest critic being Thomas McElwee, a member of the legislature from Bedford County. He assembled and published his own minority report, which implied that aspects of what happened were actually concealed by the prison. He concluded that the gag was put on Mackenzie by order of the warden. He died by reason of the application. The punishment was unlawful, and therefore he was murdered. At
Yep.
the center of McKelwey's charge, she is accusing Eastern State Penitentiary of murder. In his report for the minority, McKelwey also had several drawings commissioned of common punishments during Eastern State's early days, including a
I
restraining
had the
chair,
overlay
a
up
straitjacket, and an image of a man
with these
locked
pictures
in
that he's
behind
showing.
the
They are bad.
So ultimately, what were the outcomes of the investigation?
I don't know why they probably did do
The
it.
president of the
though.
Board of Inspectors, Judge Cox, had resigned ahead of the investigation,
Probably.
denouncing the abuses
Think
that were
about
going
it.
on within the prison
It's
and writing
probably
that I can no
and-
longer allow my name to be used to authenticate acts of the
Right.
board nor consent to preside over its deliberations. Some prison employees accused of prison mismanagement were fired. However, Warden Samuel Wood continued to serve as warden until 1840. In fact, when he retired, the prison's annual report stated that much praise is due to this gentleman for his judicious organization and arrangement of an important and united system of penitentiary punishment, and for his humane and kind treatment of prisoners under his care.
Okay, somebody's been drinking too much of the
This
Kool-Aid.
scandal and investigation marked a crucial point in Eastern State history. It was highly publicized because both Thomas...
Whoa, sorry guys. Hold on, I'll get back up to where it was.
I can no longer allow... do not have historic data from Eastern State that examines the relationship between race and severe punishment.
Okay, now what was it? Who were we saying that to?
No, I'm just saying they were saying that they were giving them praise for having uncruel punishment to the people. I said somebody's been drinking too much of the Kool-Aid because that is not what I hear. Shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Straight jacket, a thing that goes into the mouth that literally, caused the man's blood to go up to his brain and take him out with one blow. Yeah, you know what? That is not uncruel. That is not uncruel punishment. That is cruel punishment.
Yep,
That
it
is real
is.
cruel punishment.
It
And putting
is.
these
Okay.
straight jackets, oh my God. And he's saying that they saying that he was cool and everything. Man, they've been drinking some
Man.
Kool-Aid. They were drinking a lot of their own Kool-Aid.
Definitely. All right, here we go, guys.
At the prison during this period. However, we do have scholarship pointing to other aspects of institutional racism within the prison system during this 19th century period. Just as studies show that Black men are incarcerated at disproportionate rates today, studies of Eastern State incarceration data reveal that, according to historian Leslie Patrick Stamp, the percentage of African American men sentenced to Eastern State Penitentiary always remained overrepresented related to the city and, more strikingly, to the state. Additionally, Eastern State was...
Now you look at that chart. This is back in 2010. From 1970 to 2010. This is how they calculated who, how many people of each was in the prison system.
But I think we have overpopulated now than they had in their population, because they said that a lot of the African American people were not, calculated.
Camp Hill's overpopulated.
Huh?
Camp Hill's overpopulated.
Yeah, they were, but usually, like they said, they find that the people who are not a part of their society, they would put them inside there, put some charges, and then they'll put it inside there. So, majority of people, like minorities, such as African Americans, maybe Native Americans, Irish Americans, Italian Americans, who they found that, were not...
A lot of people don't realize it's
consistent to their society, they would put them in there. So you had a whole bunch of populations in there, including people from like Italy, people from Ireland and China and all kinds of places.
Oh yeah.
It was just weird. I mean, if you go and look at their records there, they'll show you all the people that were in there. It's a book that has all the people that was actually in there, and it has a whole bunch of people, and it's not just a whole majority of African Americans either. There's a lot of other people in there, like people from Ireland, like indebted slaves.
And debted servants.
Oh yeah, indebted servants. They were, if they didn't pay their debt, guess where they're going?
Actually, some of them, they weren't paying their debts. They were paying the debts of the people that served.
Yeah.
And what they would do was they'd sell them off to pay the debt.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Over here, if they didn't do it, guess where they were sent? Eastern state.
Yep.
They were paying them in the Eastern state. So you have people who are indebted servants stuck in Eastern state for not paying their debt. So you had a whole bunch of people stuck in there for minor charges, what we would call these days minor charges. Somebody who didn't pay their debt, they might get a slap, a warning or something. Back then, they didn't get that. They would just get stuck in there.
Too, I like the way, not Once Upon a Time. I keep saying Once Upon a Time. I like the way Ever After said it. First, you make thieves, and then you punish them for what you made.
Exactly.
Right.
They would punish them. Oh, you lucky.
You have your own monster. I got you your own
I
monster.
already drunk my monster. You told me.
All right, guys, we're going to continue this. We're probably going to have to do the other two tomorrow.
Okay.
Here we go.
Was racially segregated until the early 1960s and employed an all-white guard staff until 1956. This information makes me wonder how did the existence of racist power structures within and outside the walls impact the treatment of prisoners of color throughout the prison's history?
Not really bad. Very, very bad.
Recent prison investigations have revealed racial bias in the treatment of incarcerated people today. For example, in 2016, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo ordered an investigation of racial bias.
I remember that.
In New York prisons after the New York Times published an analysis of almost 60,000 disciplinary cases. The Times found that in prison, Black people were 30% more likely to get a disciplinary ticket or punishment than white people. They were also 65% more likely to be sent to solitary confinement. Although Governor Cuomo responded to findings by stating that he would look to the Inspector General to recommend reforms for immediate response and immediate implementation, the Times confirmed that as of 2018, no findings or recommendations had been released. And currently, as of 2020, there are still no additional updates about these recommendations. Other recent investigations have uncovered violence, bad infrastructure, and mismanagement in prisons today. In 2020, the Justice Department launched a major investigation into prison conditions in Mississippi. In February, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division officially announced an investigation into conditions in several Mississippi prisons after a series of deaths and episodes of violence occurred inside. According to NPR, the recent violence began after an uprising over the death of an incarcerated person occurred in Mississippi State Penitentiary, also known as Parchman Prison, in December of 2019. Between December and February, 15 people had died and 29 staff members had been assaulted.
Wow.
So how did conditions within these prisons reach the outside to help initiate this investigation? A series of images and videos were captured using contraband cell phones, revealing footage of fights, crumbling infrastructure, broken toilets, and rodent infestations. Additionally, a 23-page request developed by civil rights groups and state lawmakers was sent to federal officials, articulating problems such as understaffing, gang activity, and violence. In January, 29 incarcerated people filed lawsuits against state officials. And Governor Tate Reeves requested that the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation assign an officer to Parchman Prison. He also encouraged a group of prosecutors and law enforcement officials to find a replacement for the former state prison commissioner who had resigned in December. So, concluding, how do you think prisons should be held accountable for problems that go on within their walls? At the beginning of this presentation, we examined Eastern State's 1834 investigation and the mechanisms in place for reviewing, general prison conditions, and how, according to some Eastern State employees, the Board of Inspectors failed to address concerns during their informal inquiry. In order to confront these concerns, prison employees went above the Board of Inspectors to report to the Attorney General what they viewed as malpractice within the walls. If these people did not go outside of established internal systems, these alleged acts of corruption and cruelty might never have been illuminated. Along with the 1834 investigation, the New York and Mississippi prison investigations also highlight the varying ways in which investigations into prison conditions can be initiated and conducted. According to the American Bar Association, there are standards for internal reviews, such as internal or contracted auditing units who are responsible for investigating serious allegations of staff misconduct. This was the role of the Board of Inspectors at Eastern State in the 1830s. There are also standards for external reviews and investigations. External reviews include regular inspections and public reports of prisons by governmental agencies, independent of each jurisdiction's prison. The Bar Association also states that governmental authorities should enact legislation to implement and fund compliance with these standards, and that legislative bodies should exercise vigorous oversight of corrections, including conducting regular hearings and visits. External reviews can also be done by non-governmental bodies, providing additional oversight and advocacy to support incarcerated people seeking justice. For example, here in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Prison Society has been conducting regular visits to prisons and speaking with incarcerated people about prison conditions since its founding in 18...
Well, they need to do that to Lebanon County Prison because they haven't gone in there for years.
They have now. They have now.
Oh my
That
God!
was one of Josh Shapiro's executive order when he first came in. He wanted to know how our prison system was because he said.
Well, I guarantee Lebanon County failed because it's nothing but you smell the store. There's mold on top of the wall by in the corners. I mean, it's bad in there.
Then I'm sure they probably doing something because, like I said, Tom Wolf. Like I said, when Josh Shapiro and Tom Wolf had passed it on to Josh Shapiro, he was like, "Leah, I want to know about our prison system because we got a lot of incarcerated people incarcerated for stupid things or for minor infractions." So he went in there. He started looking at all of these different prisons here in Pennsylvania, especially in the upper areas like Bucks County, Lebanon County, all those counties, because he wanted to see, what his prison system was like, especially because, you got so many people incarcerated, and then you just getting over the, illness that came through. So
right.
They probably was looking into that because who knows what happened when that happened, when everybody was closed up because of that illness. Yeah, I'm sure Lebanon County was getting all kinds of complaints.
Yeah, probably.
They probably
Go ahead.
They will probably get all kinds of complaints because they got to be stuck in there and that is happening. And you got
the thing with Lebanon County is they're that overpacked. They actually end up having to use the lunchroom and put bunk beds in there, so they have places for the prisoners to sleep.
Oh hell! Then they probably had to release some people because if you don't have
that's one thing. The warden wouldn't release anybody.
Oh, that's fudge.
Yeah, they did that. They did something like that when Katrina hit. There was a prison. They just left everybody.
Yeah, they left them right in there while the store was going on.
Yep.
And
they escaped. A lot of them escaped out of their cells in time so that they could start,
evacuating people.
Well, no, not evacuate. They didn't evacuate. They were left in there with
Yeah,
no
they were
way.
left to die.
Yeah, with no way to escape.
So they
started just climbing to higher floors,
and just stayed.
And they ran out of food, and it got really bad.
Yep. Okay, here we go.
1987, when it was called the Philadelphia Society for Alleviating the Miseries of Public Prisons. This was actually the first non-governmental entity in the United States which was granted legislative authority to go inside of prisons. On the one hand, the varying models of prison review and oversight through state legislative committees, the Department of Justice, prisoner lawsuits, law enforcement reviews, internal and external.
Okay, just to let you guys know, I'm going to let it play through. It's 18:31, and it'll be done at 21:52, so we only have a couple of minutes. I'll let it play.
Okay.
Reviews might suggest a robust, comprehensive, and multi-layered system. On the other hand, however, once again, according to the American Bar Association, the United States is one of the only few Western countries without a comprehensive mechanism for the routine inspection and monitoring of all places of confinement. The assertion that there is no consistent and comprehensive method of oversights of all prisons and jails and detention centers raises big questions about accountability in the US prison system. The United States has a sprawling network of diverse types of confinement, from state prisons to federal prisons, from juvenile detention centers to private prisons, from ICE facilities to psychiatric correctional facilities. Criminal justice in America is immensely complicated. On the following slides are a few maps of prison locations from various departments of corrections websites, which for me helps visualize the enormity of our criminal justice system and how there is not one uniform approach to presenting data on corrections. Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, California, Massachusetts.
Wow.
Alabama.
Now I know Alabama is popular
Texas,
with prisons.
And then finally, a map of federal prisons in the United States. As a society, as citizens in a democracy, it's really up to us to decide how prisons should be reviewed and investigated. Many of our governmental officials responsible for investigation and reform are elected officials, and yet many times it takes incarcerated Americans or people on the outside to raise concerns to these officials. Additionally, voting rights are in many cases limited for Americans who are incarcerated or previously incarcerated. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, in 21 states, people lose their voting rights during incarceration and for a period of time after, typically while on parole or probation. With election season quickly approaching, we must each decide what justice in America looks like, who is shaping these decisions and policies, and also who has the right to vote. As we close, let's reflect on these two questions. Who should hold prisons accountable? And what will future prison investigations reveal about the treatment of the confined during this pandemic? I want to thank you so much for stopping by Eastern State's Facebook page today. Be sure to stay tuned next week for the second installment of our investigation series, which will take a look at the 1897 investigation.
Okay, and what we'll do is tomorrow we'll continue on with it, and we'll do a part 2 because
our time is almost up.
Well, yeah, it's like 11:02 for you and 10:02 for me. So we'll do part 2 tomorrow of the 1897.
Like I said, if you are actually in Philadelphia area, check these places out. This place out. It's really cool. And it has a lot of history in it. a lot of history and haunting. So if you are an enthusiast of haunting and history, this is the place you should go. It's called Eastern State Penitentiary, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
What are you?
No, that's where it's located. That's where Eastern State is, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
No, that's not what I was
So
saying.
tomorrow we will do part 2 of it because there's only one more of that. I was looking on their website; they don't have nothing in for paranormal on their website. So that must be on the Facebook side.
Maybe,
I'll
or you have
have
to.
to look, or I'll go strictly to their website and get it from there if I have to. But we'll continue it tomorrow. And then if we're done with that, we'll turn over to Penhurst.
That's
too.
another one. That's another one.
Yeah, that's another one that, But I figured we'd try, showing something back in history and work up to what's going on now and, for paranormal and stuff.
And the
So,
cool thing about it is that place is not only used for historical and haunting spots. Like I said, we have something here in October or September. It starts in September and it ends in November, and it's called on Terror Behind the Walls, where they have people dressed up as different things, and they would literally scare the hell out of you. They also do that up in Penhurst. They have a haunted thing up in Penhurst where they scare the hell out of people. It's dual thing. So if you're upper Pennsylvania, you can go to Penhurst, or if you're down in Philadelphia in October or September, you could go for Terror on the Wall. They usually start their tickets. You have to go to Eastern State to find the tickets. And they'll go for different prices, but it is really something that you will never forget.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
She did it with me once.
No, I did not.
Did I do it myself?
No, you did not.
I've been to Penhurst.
No, you did not.
No? I thought I won. Nope.
No, every year we say we're gonna go, and then we chicken out at the last second.
I want to do it. I really do.
I do not.
I do. I might wind up taking my phone and doing it myself and just have my phone with me.
Because if I go in there, I will have a panic attack.
Just call Knuckins Butts up. She'll go with you.
Yeah, I might do that. Maybe I can ask Knuckins if she wants to come down and
Because if I go inside and they touch me, or if I get too scared, I'll go into a panic attack.
Like I said,
and I'm either gonna cry my eyes out or I'm gonna punch somebody in haul ass.
Yeah, there were some other people that actually did that. They were in there and something touched her, and the lady just turned hard ass and punched it. Hauled out of that place. Like it was like she was on fire. That's why I said I'm going to see if I can ask Knuckins, or I wouldn't go on my own. I want to go in there.
Well, I think Knuckins went to check that place out too, so.
It's really cool.
I wanted to do it. I just know that I'll have an anxiety attack.
But this is just the thing called Terror on the Wall. I've gone in there when we just do the walk around, and yeah, I'm not too fond of the walk around anymore. Like I said, I got punched, pushed, and slapped in the butt. I'm good.
You want to go in there on Halloween when there's going to be people dressed up and the spirits are able to walk on Earth? Yeah, good luck with that.
All right, guys, it's time to close shop. We will be back tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and participating. The replay, leave a comment. Make sure everybody hits like. And
guys, good night, everybody. Sleep well and have a good night. Until tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Intro time.